My basil is just starting to germinate, and I'm always confused about what's the distance I should set my lights. So I ended up just setting these at about 4 inches, and if the plants start getting leggy, I guess I'll move the lights down and see how that works. I've got my pansies in the front here too, and they haven't come up yet. La la la, la la la. My greens are ready to transplant out into the garden. Mustard greens, collard greens, dazzling blue kale, Toscana kale, and bok choy, which is intended for the bed ends out there in the garden to attract away slugs from the other crops. I started it a little bit later because it always grows so much faster, but I probably should have started a little bit sooner because it's behind the other guys a little bit. I've got my Salanova lettuce for my first weekly succession, and I also have 2 other trays of Salanova lettuce. You can see how much farther behind this is than this. I did it on purpose. Long story, let me explain. I need 2 trays of Salanova lettuce, 1 red, 1 green, to do a weekly succession of 20 feet. So half of one of my 40-foot beds each week. And I have multiple beds of Salanova lettuce. So I don't know why, but last year I only seeded 1 flat of Salanova lettuce, half of it red and half of it green. And that only covers a quarter of a bed, and it wasn't enough. I don't know why I did that. I made some mistake in my head, which I do. And so somehow I tripled trying to correct my mistake. And instead of doing 2 flats, 1 red and 1 green of Salanova lettuce, I did 4 flats, 2 red and 2 green of Salanova lettuce. And so I am trying to slow down the growth of 2 of the trays. Last week I put the lettuce flats out here during the day and then put them in the greenhouse at night because we were getting freezing temperatures at night. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and leave them out the day and the night for this whole week because temperatures at night are just, you know, down in the low 40s. No more freezing. La la la, la la la. Leeks will go out this week if all goes well, although I could wait a little bit, I suppose. Green onions will go out. Again, I could wait on those, but chard, which I had to reseed, it should be ready to go out this week, but it's going to take a little bit longer because I had to fix that mess. And herbs will take a little while to grow too. Alrighty, the plan is for the chard, kale, and greens to go in those 3 beds over there. These 3 beds right here will be in Salanova lettuce in weekly successions. And so I'll have 1 bed that won't be in lettuce for a while, which I might want to seed with spinach or something. And then this bed is going to be leeks and green onions. Now the birds, the fox sparrows were out here kicking around and rototilling for me last week, but they are gone. The one thing I don't know is if the golden crowned and the white crowned sparrows will show up, and they eat vegetation. So I'm going to leave my sugar snap peas covered for at least a couple weeks. And some of the seaweed still out on the surface of the bed. I think I might scrape that off, crunch it up in the pathways with my feet, scrape it back on, see what the consistency is, and then I can plant right into it. Over here, I've got my 4 beds of garlic, which I'm going to pull that row cover off this week because those plants are, you know, outgrowing their hoops. And I've got my 3 beds of carrots here. They'll probably take a while to germinate, but I wanted to check germination in this bed of baby chard, mustard, and spinach. At this end, I'm seeing the spinach come up in these 3 rows. And I'm also seeing some mustard come up. And so see how that goes. Let's check the other end where I've got my baby chard. Okay, so I'm seeing some chard just starting to pop their little heads up here and there. Here's some more. Taking a look here over at the sugar snap peas. I've got 106 plants sprouting And the New Zealand White Clover that I broadcast along the edges here, that's germinating. I got all of the seaweed raked off from the beds into the pathways, except for this one bed over here where it's going to be chard, which isn't ready yet. Plus it's right next to the covered greens that are coming up, so I'm gonna leave that bed alone. But it was interesting to see that these beds over here, where I used seaweed from a pile that was way more composted, this stuff is really broken down, and it's not like crunchy or anything. It's just already broken down, can be just thrown back onto the beds and used as is. Whereas the beds over here, I used a pile of seaweed that was kind of, you know, more freshly gathered, and so it's, you know, kind of more intact. And so I stomped on that in the pathways, trying to kind of crunch it up. And so I may do a couple of passes where I go from the pathways back into the beds, let it dry, throw it back into the pathways, and you know, crunch it up and see if I can break that down a little bit more. So yeah, I also pulled the row cover and the hoops off of the garlic. Orach that I seeded last week in these edge bed things. They're up. Can you see them? La 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 la. And over here, this bed's a little bit drier, so we'll see how the germination goes with these guys. Oh, there they are. La 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 la. Orach is coming up in this section here too, but boy, it sure is shaded out by this mizuna, which I need to cut. I bottom watered all of these starts. These guys are the biggest, so I think I'm going to deal with these guys first today. The kale, collard greens, mustards. Got the drip running on all of the beds in both greenhouses. I got one little bird kicking around, along with the robins. I am channeling the pathways back onto the beds. This is the fluffy stuff. I've got a twine marking the pathway. Okay, dudes, you'll notice that there's nothing planted out here. So what I was gonna do is just, like, you know, dig out one bed and plant the biggest transplants today. But then I was like, oh, if I don't dig out the other pathway, then I'm gonna be making a mess after I've already transplanted. You can barely see the grid in this dry, chunky stuff. Okay, dudes. Again, kind of hard to see the grids. Can you see the grids? Barely. Barely. Okie doke. This bed right here is going to be lettuce. I'm going to plant a half a bed. So I use the 4-row gritter. These two beds are going to be greens. So I use the 2-row gritter. I'm going to try and get everything planted all at once, and then just throw the row cover on it. Hoping that I don't get interfered with by birds, moths, and butterflies. A white or a golden crowned sparrow, I think. Look at him, wrecking my grid already. Who are you, buddy? Oh, I might have a picture of him. I think I'm gonna do these staggered, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, all planted. I only had to chase off 2 birds, and I've got a butterfly thing out here that I'm just having to watch. Mustard greens, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Dazzling blue kale, 25. Collard greens, 24. And then I've got Narrow D Toscana kale. 6061. And then I've got the first succession of Salanova lettuce back here on the north side, and I've got 60 red and 60 green. I am going to get these guys covered up as quickly as possible. Alrighty, so I've got 11 hoops about every 4 feet and half bed here with the lettuce. Row cover next. Okay, everybody's covered and safe, I think. Check this out, folks. Remember last year I had stupid clips? Well, this year I got some row cover clips that I hope will be jolly. They get very good reviews. This is them here. And I've got some extra kale and lettuce here. And what my plan was is that I would do a trap patch of kale out here somewhere where the pests, the spotted cutworm and stuff would come in. And there's my robin friend. So I got to figure out where I want to plant that kale trap plot or whatever. Last year's planting calendar says that I need to seed my 3rd weekly succession of Salanova lettuce. Seeded and waiting for germination up here in the house. Okay, so I cut out 1 row of orach, I suppose to give the spinach behind there a little bit more light. And I cut out 1 row of mizuna to give the little orach seedlings some light. And we got 2 bags, baby greens. Okay, and over here I've got 2 rows of spinach that I pulled out of here, trying to give this lettuce a little bit of light. And I pulled 6 plants from this bok choy patch, trying to give this lettuce a little bit more light too. It's planted in between here. So here's my haul. So pretty. Oh, there he goes. I just hand watered this half bed of Salanova lettuce. Gave each little guy a pretty good drink. Tried not to get the leaves wet, but some kind of got wet. I wanted to do the lettuce for sure because I transplanted it pretty shallow. So, because like last year, I transplanted them really deep and then they didn't have room to grow their leaves out, so they were kind of like, ugh. And the other greens, I planted them deeper, and so they should be able to hold on. We're supposed to get a bunch of rain starting Sunday, so I think it should be good. I moved the seaweed from the bed into the pathway, so I'm doing the little exchange, crunch, crunch, crunch. Chunkiness of the seaweed after it's been moved on and off the path. Before and after. Okay, dudes, I've been hemming and hawing about what I should do, and I'm just going to plant everything. I'm just planting everything except for the herbs and the reseeded chard that need more time. But these guys, I've been just like, oh my gosh, if I plant clover over here, and then what if I need an extra bed? What am I going to do? Well, I'll just cut back the clover. I'll get some soil from this pile, and I'll just suppress the clover, and I'll plant whatever I need to plant. It's going to be fine, folks. I've been just worrying. So I'm going to plant peas in this bed here, in this next bed, and clover around it. And then I'm just planting clover in this 3rd bed. And I was just worrying about the peas because I'm starting them a little bit soon because these other ones are only like, this tall. I had Tyler rototill because I'm just like, I don't know how. I want to seed. See, these are my 3 beds of lettuce in weekly successions. Well, this one bed right here is going to sit for a whole month with nothing in it. So I'm going to seed some mizuna and some spinach in it, the whole bed. And so I couldn't seed into chunks. And so then this other one was chunky, and it was gonna be kind of hard to seed leeks and onions. So I'm like, okay, Tyler, rototill this thing. And I am going to transplant out my second weekly succession of lettuce. It was supposed to go out next week, but why not plant it out now, right? Everything's gonna get rained on. That's what I'm ready for the rain. So I'm gonna finish that half bed with my second succession of lettuce, and that's what's gonna happen. Salanova lettuce, third succession, is popping up. These guys need to go out to the greenhouse table. And then my basil here, I planted some pansies in this front row, and I see one finally coming up, unless that's a weed. I thought these little birds were gone, but there he is. Okay, so I've got these two beds undersown with microclover down the center of the bed, and I almost forgot, I need to seed another 10 feet for a second succession of baby chard. Fire fresh baby chard. So look how perfectly that hand seeding went. I just ran the wire hoe down through the rows, and so do another 10 feet. I ended up hoeing through the spinach and mizuna. Spinach seeded pretty good. I don't know about the mizuna. There's like clumps and then spaces. We'll see how it goes. I'd like to hoe through the carrots, but I think they're too small. Third succession of Salanova lettuce. Check this out. Bok choy is all grown up. Okay, dudes, I am planting bok choy, 2 at each end of the bed ends. I decided to use up some of that extra kale that I had. You know, I wanted to do a trap plot somewhere, and I decided, why not just do them in front of the garlic, since these guys are uncovered, you know, and so hopefully the moths come in, you know, and go to the kale and bok choy or whatever. And I've got them at the other end in case they come in from the other side. I've got that bok choy and kale covered just because I've been seeing the occasional, what looks like a white crowned sparrow, which will just nibble these guys down to the nib. I used the 4-row gritter to mark out this bed. And this is where we've got the leeks in the back and green onions. It'll be 1 patch, and then I'll have 2 more patches later on. Yep, so it's almost 6 feet with my 72 count soil blocks. Some of these probably weren't worth planting, little buddies, but I put them in anyway. And I put at the edges and in the center, and 4 rows. There we go. Okay, leeks next. Once I get it started, it shouldn't be too hard, I don't think. I think they're just gonna come apart, and I can just plant them individually in each hole. 56 times 4 is 224 leek plants. Same spacing as green onions, 4 rows. Covered, except for the big gaping hole. This chard is big enough now, right? Why don't we just plant the chard? Okay, so we got 60 little fellows. So you didn't get left behind. You get to do everything with everyone else out here. Okay. Just some herbs, and that's it. That's all that's left. Actually, I had to put my bug hat on for the first time this year. I'm super happy, folks. I'm super happy about these clips. We'll see how they hold up in a windstorm. I'll tell you how they do when that happens. See you guys next week. I got some visitors out to the garden checking things out.
It's awesome.